Hi everyone, welcome back to Babbling Irons. So you get yet again, you know the familiar story. It's another day, therefore another rumour. But this one in itself could be something a little bit more interesting. It's a player that's going to be relatively unknown for many in the fan base. Myself and Sloth had to do a bit of research on it today to get ourselves kind of tuned into what type of player he is. But we are currently linked with Samuel Illing Jr., 19-year-old winger of Juventus. Spent many a year at Chelsea. In fact, he was there for 9 years before moving over in 2020. An article from Il Bianconero, which is making reference to him being available around 20 million euros. Obviously, Juventus are in a bit of a financial state. Once again, the likes of Locatelli are also apparently up for sale at 25 million euros, which is also an incredible bargain for someone who goes out and gets him. But if we go back to, obviously, Samuel Illing Jr., it's drawing attention from the likes of Fulham, Everton. As we know, Everton love a winger, and ourselves as well. Obviously, the news is breaking as well around Borges signing for West Ham. Do you think this is a player that we would no longer be interested in, or do you think this would be a player that would look to buy because there would be maybe a view to maybe use Illing Jr. and also to use Borges and utilise them to switch both sides because of their age? They're going to be fairly malleable in kind of being inverted wingers, or one being a traditional out-and-out winger.
I definitely see that as the thinking behind it. We know he is very much an out-and-out left winger, and it would give us a bit of versatility in terms of who he can play on what side. Obviously, we could then look to move Benrahma into the middle if possible, and it gives us a lot of quality and depth, and we could basically move someone like Vlasic on for next to nothing. It is very frustrating about the homegrown side of things. This is a guy who is incredibly exciting and has all those sort of physical assets that you would want from a modern winger. It's something that I do think we could probably look to see one of the forwards moving on, and maybe Cornet advancing. I'm not quite sure how I feel about that in terms of the suitability or even just, injuries. But I do think this would be a really smart move.
No, I completely agree. So thinking around, from what you've seen of his kind of strengths, weaknesses, what would you say, based on your kind of views, what do you think are his strengths? What do you think are his weaknesses?
Well, I think in terms of his strengths, he's obviously 6 foot, and we know that is something that David Moyes will really value. He is incredibly good on the ball, not just with his first touch, but the dribbling that he is capable of is not just the speed of it, but his ability to beat a man is fantastic. And he's got that not Kvitschkala sort of style of play, but that same sort of waftiness and how he moves, and also his ability to hold a man off. It's that strength that is quite deceptive. And he gives us something that on that left side in particular we've kind of lacked, which is pace. I rate Benrahma, but having the option to move him centrally, play off Scamacca, or even throw him on for the final 20 minutes or something and have him just run at players and use his skill. Those are things that are incredibly exciting. In terms of his weaknesses, to be honest, I don't think he really has any significant weaknesses. I think the main one is probably just that he isn't really proven in the Premier League, and he hasn't had too much time at Juventus off the bench. He's not really started many games, if any, and I think that is kind of a potential risk. But when you're talking about a 19-year-old, I'll be really honest and say that I don't really think that's much of a mark against him. I think he is a huge talent with a huge future, And he's exactly the sort of player that Moyes would like with his work rate, his size, his ability on the ball, and he loves to get a cross in. It's if you think about having someone like Scamacca in the box, or I'm not just talking aerial balls in. His delivery is fantastic, and it's not just route one. He can beat the man. He can play it back into the area. He can play in so many different ways that I would think feeding someone like Scamacca is going to create so many chances.
Yeah, completely agree. And if we look at his kind of minutes in terms of how many minutes he's played in the first team of Juventus, which let's not forget, this is Juventus we're talking of. This is a 19-year-old who's played 645 minutes this season in their first team. Obviously, he's played in Serie C as well. So he has been playing at a professional level. He's been playing on the third tier of Italian football and subsequently been essentially playing as well in the first team as well as a sub predominantly. And what is interesting is that they've also played him at left back to improve his defensive side. So that's kind of, again, to help him with those recoveries and help him to kind of, help that defensive part of his game. And that for me is still a weakness. He can overcommit from what I've seen. He does, because he has such pace, he does charge into kind of situations, which does mean that he can commit a foul because, he's overcommitting or he's going too early, coming kind of because of his pace can kind of come a bit later, and does commit quite a number of fouls, which is obviously something he will need to improve on, and that will improve obviously with more minutes anyway. As you say, he's exceptional with the ball. What he can tend to do is get slightly dispossessed easily because he kind of waits, he kind of positions his body so he can get straight into his left foot, sucker or lull the defender in, and then he can just hit it and run. Which he does a lot. So he does actually earn a lot of fouls through doing that. He also makes sure that defenders overcommit. Obviously, there is that tendency that they can kind of pip him to the ball. But however, when he gets on it, he does show some incredible talent already. And if we look at some statistics that I pulled out as well, bearing in mind, as I say, he's played about 600 minutes. But if you look at that in terms of that 600 minutes, in terms of full 90s, he dribbles 4.88%, 4.88 times per 90, which is over 54% success rate. It's 1.4 progressive runs per game. And I know these maybe don't sound like big numbers, but when you consider most of the time the median line is almost kind of maybe 3 dribbles per game. I think that's almost Benrahma level of dribbles per game, and that's above the average line. 3 crosses per 90, again, doesn't sound a lot, but you'll be surprised by how many times players are not crossing. 36% success rate as well with those crosses. Deep completions one is one that I really do quite like, because what it shows is that it's a player who drives into the area and then he's making cutbacks and delivering into the area as well. And he's got 2 assists across all top competitions for Juventus this year, got 1 goal. One thing that he does need to probably bring is goals, but as he kind of holds such a wide position on that left-hand side, it is more difficult for him to kind of get in and score, unless, again, you are playing that Pep Guardiola type wide winger where you are constantly then running in at the back post, which isn't necessarily how Juventus do it. Defensively, it's pretty good as well, 6 duels per 90, 55% success rate, gets like 4 recoveries in the opposition half, 4 assists per 90. So these are all really good kind of attributes or kind of statistics that point to a player that is very proactive. And bearing in mind, Juventus play a lot like West Ham in the sense of they're not very progressive in terms of their press. So from a pressing point of view, he is still quite weak. But again, that's also a stylistic piece of Juventus. It's about getting behind, keeping structured, restricting space, and then ultimately not conceding, which is what Juventus do brilliantly. So he does kind of fit in with that West Ham kind of thing, because he does have that ability to, again, sit within and then receive the ball. And once he does receive it, he is going to be a massive threat. Obviously, there's a lot to grow with him, but it being a player that is not necessarily that well known, it's one of those ones that actually you can tell it's more Tim Steidten. It's also a lot more interesting as a talent because again, it's what a player could be, and if he's already breaking into a Juventus team, he's not likely to get over the next 3 to 4 years, maybe the minutes that he needs in which to develop. But it's maybe a player, again, we've talked about it loads of times, is you sometimes have to take a chance on one of these players after a handful of games from maybe these bigger clubs in which to pip them before other clubs become interested, and then all of a sudden have got themselves a bit of a gem. Now, going forward, if we were to move from Slot, how do you see him? Do you see him staying on that left-hand side and maybe us experiment with Borges going to the right? Or do you see that us looking to maybe develop both of them as a, alternative to the left side and also an alternative on the right-hand side?
I think we'll see them as sort of quite versatile options, switching sides if possible. I do think that the only real sort of thing that he does really need to push forward with is his right foot. But I do think that, at 19 years old, most players are dominant with one foot, and it will come with more first team football. It will definitely come if he joins West Ham, because I'm sure our coaching staff will be all over that. But he is, as I said, an out and out winger, and if he is put on that right hand side, the Iron Robben style threat of just cutting in on that left is massive. And I do think if he were to rotate in for Bowen and give him a few starts, whether it's in the cup or in Europe, off the bench in league games, those are really, really kind of, it's an exciting threat for West Ham fans, because as you and I have said so many times, we haven't had pace, and we haven't had pace off the bench for a long time. Even if you look at, I know he wasn't great last season, but Cornet's impact off the bench at times, even in league games, he was getting chances, and you and I were both saying he needs longer in these games to warm up. And I think this is a guy who's used to coming on for 20 minutes, 17 minutes, all that kind of thing. If you give him that chance, he's going to try his best to take it with both hands. And I can see a wing set of Borges and him just being absolute carnage for defenders.
Yeah, let's face it, if you've got tired legs and you've got two youngsters who are pretty blistering, we obviously know Borges is beyond blistering as pace, but to defend that, again, you're coming into the last 15 to 20 minutes and all of a sudden you have unbridled pace running at you. And that's the other thing, two players that want to attack their opposite number, who want to get in behind. And in the case of Borges, obviously he likes to score and wants to score. And with Junior, he's obviously been known as a bit of an assist king through the youth kind of development. And again, he's got a ferocious shot on him as well, which is something that we always love to see. And lefties, I always think lefties always look so much better as well. I don't know why, but lefties just always look good on the ball when they're kind of striking as well. But so the fee is rumoured to be around 20 million euros. Do you think that's a smart deal? Would you prefer to take that kind of deal and take a risk on this? I say risk, take a calculated risk on this youngster to, again, be someone along with Borges that we can bring through over the season and develop over the next 2 to 3 to then be the players that obviously ultimately either push or take the reins from the likes of Ben Rama from Bowen?
I think 17 million pounds is not a lot of money in today's market. It is a potentially huge return you get as well, because he is the sort of player who, if he has a good few seasons, is probably going to be worth 50, 60 million pounds. And as I said, having a winger who is not just really, really quick, but also 6 foot and willing to put in the work is quite a rarity. For me, I would sign him. I know we do have a depth of talent at the moment on the wings, and I do think it would mean that we probably look to sell someone like, well, we've mentioned a few times that Benrahma could potentially attract interest from a certain league, or potentially Cornet as well could. It would probably mean shifting someone out. I don't really want us to lose Benrahma, but for these sort of players, I think they suit us a lot, and the pace that they bring is something that I do think would really help take us to not a next level, but really help us push on.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a very fair point. So, guys, it'd be nice to know what you guys think. Would you be excited about buying a player to, again, develop as part of our team? A player that can come in without the pressure of needing to be first team ready, because we have the likes of Benrahma, because we have the likes of Bowen, and obviously having two players that, if we obviously Borges is looking like it's along its way to being finalised, would you be happy with also Junior coming in as well? As we do still have the likes of Fornals, who can also dip in and out and also provide some additional experience in those positions should we need to. But let us know, guys. If you did like this video, please do subscribe. All of those wonderful things massively help us out. And let's see if we can get past the one transfer deal that we look like could happen by the end of this week. And let's see if we can bring in some young and exciting players.